You know, I'm going to give you a history lesson.
We got some dumbass motherfuckers floating around this country.
Start laughing! And when I do, start fucking.
Also, y'all did some nasty-ass jokes on my ass, too.
Funny jokes and unfunny jokes come out of the same birth.
You fucking guys are unbelievable.
Why are you laughing?
Evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Why Are You Laughing? Live from the Vaulted Podcast Studios in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. And today, I'm pleased to introduce you to Comedians Under Attack. That's right, folks. Chris Rock, Dave Chappelle. There's violence in the air in the world of comedy. Now, this is probably coming a month after all that happened, but regardless, I figured it would be a good time to do an episode about comedians, and it really kind of devolves into, like, my intention was maybe show comedians get attacked, but it kind of devolved into also, like, on-stage meltdowns and just weird stuff that has happened on stage. And by the way, I'm certain I kind of went with a few that I knew of, but we can, I think, easily do a part two. So if you guys want to send me more, feel free to send them at patreon.com/blindmike, where you can get these episodes a week early. And like I said, we are in the Vaulted Podcast Studios, just me and Matt again.
Yep. You say this will be outdated, but by the time this comes out,
who knows how many more attacks have happened?
Jim Gaffigan would have had a hot pocket thrown at his head.
Right, yeah. It'd be great if Jim Gaffigan was the one that just beats the shit out of an attacker.
He goes out and just grabs him by the throat.
Yeah, so, yeah, like my immediate thought when Chappelle got attacked was like, oh, this happened to Jim Jefferies. And by the way, people forget, like, what a great comedian Jim Jefferies was. I think kind of the road he went down with, like, talking a little more politics and stuff lost him some of his, like, hardcore fans. But he was like, one of the best storytellers ever when he started. But the first time I heard of Jim Jefferies, and the first time a lot of Americans heard of Jim Jefferies, is he was on tour, or maybe just doing, I don't know if it was on tour, but doing shows in Britain. And Jim Jefferies is an Australian comedian, for those of you that don't know. And this is before he was anybody, really. And he was kind of just, you know, he was doing his act, nearing the end of his set, and then this happened.
Inwards, so when you, hang on.
I think I even heard someone say, "You deserve this."
Yeah, I heard that too. I don't know if that's what it was, but yeah, I did hear that. Again, if you're listening to this, go to the YouTube channel and
for sure
watch it. Yeah, because we have clips.
In fact, I was gonna say, like, that probably didn't make sense, but audio, that's kind of good. Like, that's it's still interesting because you're like, what the fuck is going on? But yeah, check out the YouTube to see what's going on here. But it's not dissimilar from what Chris Rock dealt with Will Smith. Because you hear Jim Jefferies kind of think like, oh, this is someone fucking around or bringing me a drink. He goes, what? Like, he doesn't really know what's happening. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, this guy just fucking goes after him. So Jim Jefferies, a guy who, he's a comedian through and through. So do we have him getting back on stage?
Yeah, this is him right here.
Yeah. So the crowd goes nuts. This guy gets fucking tackled. I think you even hear Jim in that clip going, "What the fuck are you doing?"
Yeah, you'll hear it in a second when he talks with Kevin Nealon about it. But yeah. He's definitely not ready for it. And
right.
Like, he just kind of, like, halfway through the attack, you can see in the clip, he kind of, like, tries to grab his legs and, like, almost like form tackle him.
Yeah.
But he just can't. He just gets up and goes.
It's got to be such a horrifying experience because. And, we all broke down the Chris Rock thing and was like, oh, well, I would have done this. Or if Chris Rock isn't in on it, then why is he leaning in and this and that? But, like, in that moment, I think almost the last thing you're thinking is, this is probably an attacker. You know what I mean? Like, you're thinking, oh, it can't be that. It has to be someone, bringing a drink up on stage or just wanting to take the mic or, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I think you're almost convincing not necessarily that it's the last thing you think of, but you're convincing yourself, certainly it's not that, right?
Yeah.
But so Jim Jeffries, like the guy is handled. I think Jim Jeffries went back into the green room for a little bit to gather himself, and then he comes back out on stage.
I appreciate you welcoming me back. I'm not going to be doing much more material. I'm fucking spent out by that cunt completely. I got a fucking thing on the side of my head. Look, what many of you don't know is that I employ that bloke for when gigs are going badly.
And that is what we all wanted Chris Rock to do, like in an ideal world. But you forget, like, Jim Jeffries walked off stage and collected himself. Chris Rock had to react on live television.
Yeah.
So, like, we all love to think we'd have a snappy one-liner. But, like, that it's even crazier. I think this almost highlights how much crazier what happened to Chris Rock is.
Yeah.
But Jim Jeffries handled it beautifully. And before we get into some of the other stuff, like, Jim Jeffries is one of the first guy I saw multiple times live. Like I would go back. He came to the Wilbur like right around Christmas, like 4 years in a row. And I would go to see him every time. He was one of the best storytellers. And then I think as kind of happens, like you talk about how a lot of comedians aren't as funny when they get older. You know, you look at modern day Steve Martin or Eddie Murphy compared to what they were 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is because, like, you look at Jim Jeffries, and some people will say it's because of the political stuff. Like, he had that brilliant gun control bit, and then people were like, oh, well, now you're a political figure. And so for whatever reason, he kind of, like, got, warped into that. But the real reason I think Jim Jeffries kind of evolved and changed is, like, in these days, when this shit happened, he was a crazy, drinking party animal. And now he's an older guy. He stopped drinking for his health. He has 2 kids, I think. I know he has at least 1 kid. So, you just mature. It's the same thing like with Howard Stern. I think there's a lot of phoniness to Stern, but there's also, he's not going to be a 65-year-old throwing baloney at girls' tits. You know what I mean? So, like, Jim Jeffries evolved in kind of that same way where it's like, naturally, he's not going to have the same wild stories. But he was definitely one of the greats. But he was a pretty unknown guy at this time. Like, he was performing in England, but, wasn't really known, and he offended that guy, apparently. But the first I ever heard of Jim Jeffries was when he came over here to America to kind of do a press tour for shows he was doing, but also talk about that gig. And I heard him on, like, O&A, and then he, because of his first O&A appearance, he became a regular on there, and he kind of became part of that sort of group of comedians. You don't associate him with that now. Like, you don't think of him with Norton and Colin Quinn and those guys. But, like, that is kind of how he started with that same fan base, But this is him telling the story of... actually, before I show him telling the story, do you ever watch the show Legit?
I didn't.
It was Jim Jeffries' show on FX. It was only on 2 seasons. And it's interesting because I mentioned the gun control bit. Have you ever seen that?
No.
Brilliant, hilarious bit, like, kind of against gun control, but it's one where it's like, you're able to put whatever your thoughts are politically, you're able to, like, watch it and be like, oh, that's very funny. But thank God Craig's not here to argue with me on that. So in the show Legit, it ends with Jim getting attacked on stage, and a gun going off. And it turns out that the gun went off, like someone he knew actually shot the gun or whatever. But anyways, it ends with that, and it ends with Jim getting super famous because of that incident. And that's kind of, in a way, what happened. He kind of combined those 2 things, that famous bit and getting attacked on stage, into the final episode of his show. But it's interesting. So here's Jim Jeffries telling Kevin Nealon. By the way, ignore some of the heavy panting. Yeah. It's some weird show. I never saw this until finding this clip. I guess Kevin Nealon did some, like, interview show where you go on a hike with him.
This seems terrible. If I was a comedian, I would not want to do this with him.
No, God, no. Especially if you're a fucking booze bag like Jim Jefferies.
I have trouble not breathing heavy on this microphone. I'm sitting
down, right. But anyways, ignore that and listen to Jim Jefferies here.
This guy, I was doing some jokes, some dirty jokes, and he was on a date. I don't think his date was enjoying it. And so I used a put-down line that I've used many times, which sounds like an old line, but it's my line, which is, I'm going to leave you alone now. I put him down several times. Yeah. Last line, I'm going to leave you alone now, like your dad did, right? Yeah. And I wasn't even talking to this guy and his girlfriend. I was talking to another heckler. Yeah. Is
that typical for you, hecklers?
Yeah. But this guy was having a bad date, and then also he had some unresolved issues with his father. So he finished his drink, so it was like 3 minutes later. And then he just came up and lamped me.
Right on stage?
Yeah, he just ran up and punched me. And a lot of people say, oh, why didn't you defend yourself? And I'm like, I didn't know I was in a fight.
You got to know you're in a fight before you defend yourself.
Yeah, because normally a heckler will keep talking to you and the stakes will rise. Yeah. And you'll go, well, I might get ready for a fight here.
Yeah.
This guy, he came up, the last thing before he hits me, you can hear me go, oh, mate, you're not allowed up here.
You're not allowed up here.
I think you were right though. I think that us hearing the "you deserve it."
Yeah.
I think that was the original hecklers that he was kind of like.
Oh, yeah.
And then like when that guy went up there, they were probably like, "Yeah, you deserve it."
Obviously the guy attacking him, that hit a nerve where maybe his dad did leave him or whatever it is that guy's dealing with. Obviously he's going through something, but there is nothing worse than people at a comedy club that can't take a joke. You know what I mean? Like if you're part of some online mob that's going after someone, that's one thing, but it's like you entered the arena. You know what I mean? It will at least do so, as Nick DiPaolo always says, like, did you not look into who I am? You know what I mean? Like, look into Jim Jefferies, the fact that he uses cunt more than any other comedian, as he says. Yeah. So you got to know that if you're going to be talking shit, which you shouldn't do anyways, but if you are going to pipe up during a comedy show, you're going to get roasted. You know what I mean? You have to be ready to handle that.
I am so far in the opposite direction of being that person.
Right.
Like, I couldn't even imagine that. I went to Burt Kreischer recently in Providence, and people were, during the show, like saying, the machine, like wanting them to do the machine joke.
Yeah.
The thing he does all for his encore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I'm getting uncomfortable because I wouldn't even do that. I wouldn't even like chant like something that's like positive. Like I wouldn't even, I say nothing. I laugh and I enjoy the show. I would never. It's
watch
crazy
the performance. And it's the analogy that's always used is like, can you imagine, the cast of Rent dealing with that? Like, hey, asshole. You know what I mean? Like, could you imagine Broadway shows dealing with hecklers? Like, it's the only comedy, I've said it a million times, but stand-up is like the most disrespected art form because everyone thinks they can do it. It looks like Jim Jefferies is just up there kind of talking off the top of his head. So any drunk is like, I could do this. So you lose that respect for it for some reason.
Phantom of the Opera. Phantom walks on stage. Nice mask, weirdo.
Right, you bitch. You pussy. And then it becomes a fucking mask debate, like it's a COVID thing. But it's funny the people that have no respect. And like as a blind guy, I'm not usually wearing my glasses indoors. So like if I'm at a comedy show, I'm like, oh, I don't even want to be pointed out for that. Like I'll sit in the more in the middle. Like I don't want to sit up front for a lot of shows.
Sure.
Because it's like I don't want to be part of this. Whereas a lot of people go to comedy clubs like, hey, maybe I can be part of the act.
But right, yes, total. Yes, there's some people that definitely want that. But also, I don't think if you were sitting up front and you were brought in, and I don't think you'd rush the stage and attack Jim Jefferies.
I might. I'm pretty tough.
That would be something.
I'm scrappy. I get lost on my way up there.
You just go off the stage on the opposite direction.
I'm like, now hold on, you. I'm tripping over chairs. So yeah, that's the one I always think of when I hear comedians getting attacked is the Jim Jefferies one because it kind of launched his career. And not so much. I mean, Jim Jefferies is very funny, so like I think it would have happened for him either way. But it is kind of how he started to get recognition. But then that's the only like the Katt Williams one is kind of an attack, sort of, right? But the rest are pretty much like meltdowns that we have here.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, if you want to talk about other attacks, some other ones that come to the top of mind, obviously the most recent ones, but Big J getting pulled off stage.
Oh yeah, I forgot to include that one. Yeah,
that was one where he was doing a show in Philly,
outside of Philly, like rural Pennsylvania,
and he was doing crowd work like Jay does, and he kind of got ripped off stage by like his foot. And it was funny, he explains on Skanks, if you listen to Legion of Skanks, he explains the situation, and the reason why he was sitting so close to the edge of the stage is because the lights were in his eyes, the stage lights, and he needed to see the crowd to do crowd work.
Right. Yeah, and it's like the reason that happened is like he does a lot of crowd work, and he was talking to someone, and he just talked to the wrong drunks. And made fun of a girl and her boyfriend or brother or whatever. I forget what it was.
Yeah, it was the boyfriend and a brother. They both got involved.
They had to look macho, and they're like, "Hey, don't you fucking," It's a case of you ever have like those friends or people you know in like college where it's like, "Hey, say whatever you want about me, but you talk about my fucking family, my friend, my brothers."
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and it's like, okay, shut the fuck up. You know what I mean? Because that's just anger that you had that you want to release. It doesn't matter who they're talking about.
There are not worse people than those type of people.
That type of person.
I hate it so much.
So the next one we have is Wanda Sykes, right?
Correct.
Yeah. So this one, you guys, if you live just in this area, you might remember. It was a few years ago. Comics Come Home, the benefit that Dennis Leary does. My assumption of Comics Come Home was that it was like Boston-based comedians. It's not like Nick DiPaolo and Bobby Kelly are at this show, but there's also like Wanda Sykes, like Mulaney has done it, Jimmy Fallon, like so. Yeah, I over the years maybe it's evolved into all kinds of comedians, I guess.
Yeah.
But what makes this interesting is it is right after Trump got elected.
Yes.
Like weeks, maybe even day. It was mid-November. So probably like 2 weeks after Trump got elected. And you may remember, folks, that it wasn't such a fun time in comedy around that. You had Kate McKinnon on stage singing Hallelujah. People weren't ready to joke about it quite yet. So this is Wanda Sykes getting on stage at Comics Come Home in Boston.
I ain't wearing no goddamn lime green pants right now. Fuck that. I'm not happy. Shit's fucked up.
Pause 1 second, I'm sorry.
But it's good.
I should have said what she's referencing there is like Lenny Clark was on stage before her, and he was in his wacky outfit, I guess, lime green pants, and just Lenny Clark's the issue Wanda Sykes has with Lenny Clark is that he was doing comedy. That was this big issue. So that's what she's referring to there.
White guy time right now. It is angry white man time right now. Donald Trump won. Angry white guys rule. They fucking showed up at the playground and said, "Stop all that dunking and give me my ball back."
So it's like there's an element of kind of kidding around in there. Obviously, she's very serious. But 2 weeks after Trump gets elected, a black gay woman addressing Trump is not the craziest thing in the world. But let's cut to 7 minutes later, whatever it is, where people are like, all right, Wanda, let's get on with it. Now, Wanda's under the impression they're like not ready to hear this. But this is a comedy audience that wants to hear comedy. Now, some of it might be Trump guys saying, fuck you. But I think the most of it is a comedy audience saying like, let's get to some jokes here.
After the election, I was going around consoling people. I said, guys, look on the bright side. Look at this. I was telling everybody, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. I was like, I am certain this is not the first time we've elected a racist, sexist, homophobic president. He ain't the first one. He's just the first confirmed one. That's it. Fuck you, motherfuckers. Fuck all y'all. Fuck all of y'all.
Fun time out.
Fuck you.
Yes.
You. All y'all.
Take none of that shit.
How can you? The evidence is there.
Fuck them.
The evidence is there. How can you say he's not racist? How can you grab him by the pussy? How can you say he's not sexist? How can you say he's not racist?
This is what, and I think we're kind of past it now, but this is what a lot of people were like terrified comedy would become.
Yeah.
And it did to an extent, at least with a lot of people. And you hear the guy filming there kind of go, oh, fuck that. You tell him, Wanda.
Yeah.
And it's like, no. They're right. The crowd is right. Whatever their political beliefs are, she keeps saying, like, how can you say he's not racist? And like, what I would want to say is, oh, Wanda, they're not saying that. They're saying they want to hear some fucking jokes because you're on stage with a microphone.
I don't believe that every single person that was booing her or heckling her at that point were Trump voters.
No,
they just wanted the
in
jokes.
Boston, it can't be.
And also too, like, there's ways. You've said this a million times. There's ways to do this. That is funny. You get your Wanda. You get your point across that you're doing. You're a comedian, a very funny comedian.
Right.
You can do that funny. She's not. She's just not doing it at a comedy show.
No,
She's not doing it.
People
funny.
were so wrapped up, like Trump broke people. And then you guys may know this show because famously this got a lot of press both for Wanda and Nick DiPaolo got in a lot of trouble for the same show. Can you imagine a more different dynamic? Having Wanda Sykes and Nick DiPaolo on stage at the same show. Yeah. So Nick DiPaolo went up there and started making jokes about Peabody Jews and like all these kind of references. So he got roasted for this. Wanda got roasted by different sides of the aisle. Yeah. But it was a pretty wild show. Comics Come Home in Boston. But yeah, like I said, I think we're past it. Luckily, I think we're Of course, there are segments of comedians that are still doing that preachy, ranting kind of stuff. But it's not the majority anymore, I don't think. Is the next one Lisa Lampanelli?
Yeah, we get into Lisa Lampanelli, which I haven't seen her since I've seen her on the roasts. Mm-hmm. She's unrecognizable.
Lost a ton of weight.
I think
of weight. She may have gotten one of those surgeries. I'm not sure.
Oh, like the lap band?
Possibly.
Yeah.
I could be wrong about that. But yeah, so if you guys don't know Lisa Lampanelli, we probably referenced her in the Greg Giraldo episode.
Yeah, we did. She was in some of those clips.
Yeah, because she was those roasts were consistently guys on the people on there were Jeff Ross, Giraldo, and Lisa Lampanelli, among others. And we referred to Lisa Lampanelli. Her shtick was like, can you believe she fucks black guys, gang?
They beat it into the ground.
That was the big joke about Lisa Lampanelli. But she was very I never agreed with this. People compared her to Don Rickles. They would always say the female Don Rickles, which I never really agreed with. But I guess that it was certainly
she's an insult comic.
It was certainly an influence. Let's say that.
Yeah.
But so Lisa Lampanelli has 2 of these meltdowns on our list.
Yeah.
And very similar. So it'll be interesting. In the middle, we'll play kind of her analysis of what happens, and then we'll play the next one. It'll be interesting. But this is her. Lisa Lampanelli has had a couple goodbye tours. And somewhere in there, she became like kind of a self-help, like motivational speaker, which is, I have no problem with that. It is a weird dynamic to be like a roast insult comic and then be like, hey, let's all be positive, like that's it's a strange, but people change and evolve, whatever. Yeah. But she's like, hey, this is the last time I'm going on tour. This is in June of 2018. And a heckler is telling her she's not funny, which, as we said, often happens. And comedians have different ways of dealing with it. This is how Lisa dealt with it back then.
Talk shit to me in my own show, motherfucker, I will fucking give you personally your money back. Because I don't need to fucking work for people. No, we love you. You want to get the fuck out? I'll give you your money back. Yeah? Then go ahead, stupid. How much my show costs? Whatever you fucking... Oh! I'll give you $100 shut the fuck up. You give me $100 to shut the fuck up? Give me that. I'll fucking tear it up, you fucking idiot. Now get the fuck out of here. Okay, first of all, did I fucking tell you to leave those fucking lights on? I said it and I fucking mean it, you fucking moron! Anyone who thinks I need any fucking help needs to shut the fuck up. Every one of you, I am talking to this guy. I didn't need your help with any of my life. I don't need it now. So shut the fuck up and let me have a conversation. Shut your fucking mouths. I'm just saying to be quiet, Stevie Nicks' retarded fucking cousin. One more
Gotta laugh.
fucking sentiment from anyone who isn't me and the person I'm talking to, and you can get the fuck out.
Jesus Christ. There's one thing that's very telling in any argument when she brings it to, I never needed your help in my life. It's like, who's talking about that, Lisa? This is not about us, is it?
Yeah, this is not about us. It also, like, when you turn on the stage crew.
Yeah, so her anger is spewed everywhere.
Yeah.
And like I said, she did get a laugh at one point with that Stevie Nicks line, even though it's not the most creative. Yeah. But you're in the heat of the moment. I understand.
Also, I didn't understand. She said, "I'll give you your money back personally," and then I think the heckler, or the guy she was originally yelling at, was essentially saying, "I will pay you to shut up."
Right.
And gave her $100 bill, and she crumpled it up and threw it on the ground, and kept going. But that's such a weird, like, that guy, like, she's yelling at you in your face. You just don't get up and go.
Right.
Like, crazy.
Yeah, it was weird, and it's weird to be that angry at the entire audience, to the where you're yelling at the staff, telling people to shut the fuck up who are like, "Hey, buddy, pipe down."
Yeah.
Then you're telling them to shut up.
She just she turns on the audience immediately.
Yeah, so hey, everyone has a bad night, you know what I mean? But more bizarre to me is a while after that, when this was in the news, like the clip I got from was from TMZ. There's a longer version of that too. But it made the rounds because Lisa Lampanelli's not particularly popular now, but she had her day. Like, that's a name people know. So it made the rounds, and then she was on Jim and Sam promoting something, and Jim Norton asked her about it, and her explanation is more bizarre to me than the action itself.
So I am at the final 2 gigs. The second to last one is San Jose, California. I'm up there. And it's when all this Me Too shit is going on. Now, I never got Me Too'd, sadly.
What are the odds?
I know, shocking. I know. I was like, Jesus, just a little tip in at least. However, what happened was I have a sensitivity towards people telling me to shut up. Because my father was a gentleman and he died recently. He never told me to shut up. My brother, a gentleman, never told. No man has ever told me to shut up. So this fucking asshole, I'm trying to be nice, Jim, because that's why I asked if you changed in your life a little bit with age.
Sure. I'm
trying to be nicer off stage. There's this fucking cunt in the audience.
Off stage.
Oh, off stage,
Okay,
yes. Yeah. I'm sorry. There's this nice lady. She couldn't see because some tall fucking idiot's in front of her. And she had a cast on her leg. So I go to her, "Honey, you look miserable. Move up a little." There was a couple seats. I go, "Move up. Come on." So she's taking too long. And this fucking asshole yells, "Shut up, the two of yous." Well, I don't know. That's a hot button for me, dude.
It just hit you wrong.
It hit me
You were
because anyone
triggered.
telling me to shut, I was triggered to like, "Oh, really? I will fucking kill you." And I said, deliberately don't make it funny. Make it angry. And I had no choice. I fucking snap. It's like a postal worker.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't understand that. So there's a couple things in there. She says, I have a sensitivity towards being told to shut up, which I was assume would be followed by, because my father always told me to shut up. My brothers always told me to shut up.
Yes.
My boyfriends always told. So I fucking hate it. Her explanation was, no one's ever said that to me before, so I can't handle it.
Yeah, and
like, that was kind of a weird.
No, I thought the same as you. When she was telling that story, I thought she was going to, my father used to tell me to shut up every fucking morning.
Yeah, so I've had enough. I snapped.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was a weird explanation. But then also her kind of painting it as this Kaufman-esque brilliant response. Where like, oh, I'm not going to be funny. I'm going to do the opposite. But that's not what it was. No. It was like you snapped. It was a weird explanation of it.
Yeah. That was a bit of her covering her tracks, I think.
Maybe. And you know what? Maybe she learned from that experience.
Yeah.
Let's see Lisa Lampanelli on her next goodbye tour just this year in 2022. I think this was earlier this year, right?
So 2018 was not her last goodbye.
No, she ended up coming back.
Yes.
But
Yes,
let's
this
see.
is this year.
Maybe she's evolved. This is her on stage a few months ago.
30 years.
Ah, okay.
I don't need this shit. So you shut up. Other than the person I'm talking to, get him out. Whoever the fuck, security, get out the fucking fat cunt. cunt and the one with her. Get him out! Get him out! Am I stuttering security?
Uh-oh.
Am I fucking stuttering? We will stand here all fucking night, because I got nothing to fucking do.
Oh, boy.
Do I need to be defended? Shut up. You fucking want to be treated like fucking kids?
This sounds like
Shut up!
the worst experience.
You motherfucker!
I love you, Lisa.
I don't give a shit. I don't do this for love. I was doing this for fun. You guys are full of shit.
I wasn't doing this for love. I was doing it for fun. Is that kind of like one and the same?
I was about to say.
To the funny one, because you fucking paid so much. Honey, you already got an hour out of me, and that's what most comics give 45. So I can walk out right now and have no fucking problem with it. So shut the fuck up.
I was about to say, when you pointed that out, like, when he said, I love you, Lisa, and she goes, I'm not doing this for love, I'm doing this for fun. If I were that guy, I'd be like, yeah, that's kind of what I meant.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Meaning I was having fun at your show. I'm not in love with you.
Potato.
Yeah, that's more or less what I meant. So that's, first of all, there's very, I think we talked about it on Blind Mike Project, and I probably use the same comparison, but it's very, like, vice principal energy.
Oh, yeah.
Scolding the class, like at an assembly, like, "Hey, now everyone quiet down."
It looks like an assembly. The house lights are on.
Yeah.
First of all, it's a rough scene because in the balcony, like, there's no seats filled.
Right. Which probably contributes to some of this anger.
Yeah, totally. But she, like, I think at this point she had already told the house, put on the lights.
Yeah.
Like, I'm fucking going to town.
Yeah, and there's an interesting thing where she's screaming at the staff, and maybe security was like, oh, fuck this lady, you know?
Right.
But there's a lot of, like, I don't understand why she turns on the audience like that when they're supporting her.
Yeah,
there's a lot of, whatever that line was about her father never telling her to shut up or something, there's a lot of darkness that goes along with that, I think.
Yeah.
Because there's a weird thing of someone saying, hey, we love you, Lisa, and her going, fuck you.
Yeah. Oh, there's definitely something more to that story.
And there's weird, there were a few times during that clip where, like, I thought it was done because it was so silent.
Yeah, people are dead silent. Yeah.
And as you said, imagine being there, like how uncomfortable you'd be. You're like, it would almost be like watching a fight between, like, a couple that you're friends with.
Yeah.
Where you're like, oh, God, I don't, can we leave?
At that point, the only reason why I would stay is because I would be like, you know what? I think I could probably make some money from TMZ.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I'm filming this. Yeah, I have no. It's my job now.
Yeah, I have to.
So yeah, Lisa Lampanelli has had a rough few years as far as dealing with hecklers go. And I would also say, hey, Lisa, learn a little from Dave Chappelle. Lock up those phones. Yeah. There's no harm in that.
Yeah.
What's the next one we have?
We're gonna get into Katt Williams.
Katt Williams. Okay.
Yeah.
So Katt Williams, I will eventually do a Katt Williams episode just in general, I think, because he's a very interesting, unique character who's gotten into a lot of shit over the years. But, excuse me, I'm saying excuse me to the mic that I just bumped into. Excuse me, sir. So Katt Williams, so I went back and read articles from around this time, and it's a complex situation. But what I think happened is a couple nights before this, so Wednesday and Friday night shows in Oakland, and he's playing the arena there, Oracle, I think, where the Warriors play.
Yes.
And so on Wednesday night he had this weird kind of meltdown where he walked off stage, and then he comes back Friday night and does this bizarre, almost Carlin-esque monologue where, like, where Carlin would be like, we've got tricksters, and like he would do that like long rhyme where he does all the like he lists off the slurs and things like that. It was kind of like that. He was almost like rapping his resume, kind of.
Yeah.
It's very weird. Is that the first clip we have?
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's just hear what he's kind of doing for this 15-minute set that he has that's supposed to be an hour.
Same as women. Fuck penis. Love y'all forever. Always will. I don't give a fuck who don't like me. That's what make me real. I ain't trying to be something. This is all I'm is. You don't believe me? Ask the niggas I fuck with, the bitches I fuck, or my motherfucking kids. I done 7 specials. Richard Pryor only did 2. Eddie Murphy did 2. I did 7, which is bigger, 7 or 2. Same for me, same for you. George Carlin died with 4. Katt Williams did 4 and then did 3 more.
I meant to say, too, before this show, he had like a run-in with the law. He was dealing with some sort of like possession charges or something like that.
Yeah.
This was a weird time in Katt Williams' life where he was dealing with a lot.
Yeah.
So anyways, now here's where it gets even like more confusing because so he's dealing with a heckler who he like challenges to a fight.
Yeah.
And the guy comes up on stage and it's this there's a very weird interaction. And mind you, again, this is like a 15-minute set that was supposed to be like an hour. He's headlining. Yeah. But this is what happens, 15 minutes in or whatever it is.
No police ever show up. It's just what happens. It's punk rock. And they throw up the devil sign and worship Satan. And when we come together, it's always a big deal. I don't understand. I thought I just got out of jail.
He's about to get arrested on stage.
Sir.
He's about to get arrested on stage.
That has been calling all night and that I've been with you personally.
They're gonna handcuff him on stage and take him out.
So there's a lot of weirdness going on, and my favorite is always the commentary from the people filming. Yeah. But at some point, Katt Williams' security comes on stage, and Katt like bops him in the back of the head with a microphone and shit like that. Katt Williams would be very abusive to people, and I think like he was dealing with a lot of drug shit, and I don't know if alcohol maybe too at the time. But like I said, he's an interesting character, but it's weird to watch this kind of public meltdown. It's not totally dissimilar from the Will Smith thing where you're watching the guy being like, this guy's clearly going through something, you know?
Yeah. Apologize for the video. There's really no other clear clips out there. I looked for another one.
Right.
It's like very in and out for whatever
no, just
reason.
grainy cell phone footage.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Katt Williams, a lot of very weird interactions like that. You've seen him have meltdowns on radio and stuff like that. So we'll get back to him at another point. But there's a couple I didn't throw in because it was like there is a video online of Rogan getting into it with a feminist, and the title is very misleading. It's like Joe Rogan attacked by a feminist or something. It's not like they're just having words with each other, but it's this weird. It's Rogan when he was still kind of bro-y and confrontational, and there was a little more of an anger to him. But like this feminist confronts him, and they're just going back and forth, and like she's saying nasty shit to him, and he's giving it back to her. There's like shit like that. I feel like happens all the time. But what's weird to me is like when he gets physical or angry. Those are the two most bizarre aspects of any comedy meltdown to me, I think.
I mean, we covered another Joe Rogan one. It wasn't really a meltdown, but a stage confrontation for sure is when he got on stage and confronted Carlos Mencia, and Ari was there too.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, that's a stage that's kind of a mix of all.
Right. Yeah, definitely. So are we at the big enchilada now?
Yes.
Yeah. So this is one where like I've contemplated for a while just doing an episode about this saga, this controversy. And I always went back and forth. I'm like, is there really enough to go through? So I figured we could include it in this episode. You guys may remember a show called Seinfeld, very popular in the 90s. And there's a character on there named Cosmo Kramer. And that character was played by a man named Michael Richards, who was one of the great physical actors of all time that really didn't get a lot of work after Seinfeld. They tried the Michael Richards show. That didn't work. And Michael Richards kind of became one of these guys like you're seeing Jeremy Piven do now, where he's like, well, I was on a comedy. I guess maybe I should just do stand-up. Unfortunately, there's only one bit from Michael Richards' stand-up that I'm aware of. Are you familiar with much of his stand-up?
I don't. No, I don't know much outside of this.
I only know this classic joke from the Laugh Factory. So this is 2000.
Talk about a storyteller.
This is 2007, I think.
Yeah.
Now, I'll say the unfortunate part of this is we don't know what happened before. We don't know what led to this joke, shall we call it?
Yeah.
This is just where the footage picks up. But there's an African-American gentleman in the audience, or a couple, I think, right? Like it's a group of people.
Yeah.
And they are having words with Michael Richards on stage. And this is how, for those of you that hadn't heard it before, this is how Michael Richards handled that.
Shut up! 50 years ago, you had you upside down with a fucking fork up your ass!
All right, not off to a great start.
You can talk, you brave now, motherfucker! Roll his ass out, he's a nigger! He's a nigger!
Oh my God.
A nigger, look, there's a nigger!
All right, pause for a second. Ooh, it shocks you. That's my Norm does the impression of that, that word. So a couple things here. First, my favorite part of this video is I almost skipped, like when I was sending you clips, I was almost like, this isn't the video I'm looking for because they bleep everything out. And then I got to the part where he drops the N-bomb.
Yeah.
And it just reminded me of that Patrice bit where he's talking about on like Tough Crowd or something. They're talking about the DC sniper. And Patrice referred to him as an N-word and a Buick.
Yeah.
And they left the N-word and bleeped the word Buick because they weren't a sponsor.
Yeah.
There's such a weird period in time where they're bleeping the word fuck on the internet, but not the N-word. It's so bizarre.
It's obviously awful. It's like terrible.
Yeah.
He is losing his mind here and going to a dark place.
He's losing it. And it seems like what you're about to hear is him go, the part that Norm kind of mocks is it seems like he's trying to go into a bit where it's like, that word, why can't we use that word?
Yeah.
And it never quite gets there. So let's continue.
All right, you see? It shocks you to see what's buried beneath your stupid motherfucker. What was it called for? It's not called for you to hear on my ass, you cheap motherfucker!
Pause again.
You guys have been talking.
I like that guy going, I love the argument. This guy is screaming the N-word at an audience member. And the guy goes, hey, that was uncalled for. I love that terminology. Yes, sir, we picked up on that. Yeah, there's no one in that room that was like, this was called for.
Right. Hey, man, what's the deal?
You know what? It's, again, I referenced this in the last episode, I think. But we talked about Howard Stern using racial language and humor and shit like that. The reason I don't think it should be wiped off the internet is because I think it's a fascinating timestamp because clearly we're in a moment of time. Now, no one would think to use that.
No, not even if you were going into the best bit of the best,
the best bit or in the deepest, darkest rage.
Sure.
You would know on some level I cannot say this.
No.
But in 2007, let's not forget that word, like I said, it's not bleeped here. It was used.
This is on YouTube.
It was used on television. I know, but I'm just saying in general, like no one thought to bleep it.
Yeah, sure.
Like we're in that time in history. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was used on regular radio for a long time. Like in 2007, you're at the point, not that it's an acceptable word, but where it's not completely out of Michael Richards' mind to use it, which I think is like just an interesting timestamp in history to see just like how, humanity evolved. But let's there's a lot more.
Talking. I don't know.
You guys are going
What's
nuts.
the matter? Is it too much for you to handle? He's coming. They're gonna arrest me for calling a black man Kaminga. I don't want to see it. Hey, you don't beat the fuck up this time. Wait a minute, where's he going? I'm called for him. Hey, crocodile? You calling me crocodile, nigga? I like you. Oh, you threatening me?
We'll see what's up.
Oh, it's a big threat. That's how you get back at the man.
That was real call for it.
Wait a minute, he's not going, is he?
You're not funny. That's why you reset. Never had no show, never had no movie.
Oof. I gotta say,
I guess he's
home run.
You're absolutely right. I'm just a wash-up. Gotta stand on his feet. Absolutely. And that's it. We had it. We had it. Well, you know, that
That's not fucking call for it. No, that ain't necessary.
Well, you interrupted me, pal. That's what happens when you interrupt the right man and he's gonna chuck you down.
Call for it.
Hold on for a second. If you could just go back. Just go back a little bit. So, first of all, the thing I think is interesting is like that guy hits it out of the park. If you want to insult, whether it's George Wendt or fucking whatever sitcom character that is now like hanging on to their fame for dear life. All you have to do is go, hey, you never been in movies, never did a show. And all they can do is go, well, you got me there. Like, Michael Richards didn't have a comeback for that. And you can tell that's kind of what's eating at him this entire time. So I'm going to kind of make an argument that this wasn't necessarily fueled by racism, but instead anger. However, like what I'm hearing here, there is definitely some weird racial element where he's going, don't interrupt the white man.
Yeah, I mean, that honestly, and I'm not going to make a defense for it. But
right.
That he says, because it's all subtitled, this video. He says, that's what happens. You interrupt a white man, don't you know? Like, it sounded like he was like making
maybe kidding around, yeah.
Making it like a caricature of itself.
And like I said, we don't know what was said before this. I have no idea if that's tied into some bit. I doubt it, but what would the odds be of that? No. But we'll hear a defense, not from me, but from someone else a little later.
Do you want to finish playing this clip?
But yeah, I want to finish this clip.
All right, I backed it up a little bit.
That's it. We had it. We had it. Well, you know,
meanwhile, if you're watching this video on YouTube, you'll see everybody is getting up and walking out.
I mean, it's stunning. You're watching, like I was kid. Obviously, you know who fucking Kramer from Seinfeld is, but like I kind of set it up like that just to be like, this is an icon of television. Like Seinfeld's the most famous, probably the most, you can argue All in the Family is better or whatever, but Seinfeld's probably the most famous sitcom of all time.
Yeah.
30 years later, it's
Friends,
on...
maybe?
Yeah, it's on that level anyways. 30 years later, it's on TV all the time. Jerry Seinfeld's still making a shit ton of money off of this program.
Streaming services are fighting over it.
Yeah. So you're watching Kramer scream racial epithets at an audience. So I can understand people walking out. I would be sitting there... Another round, please. Yeah. I am watching history. This is amazing.
I still have my second drink ticket, please.
Yeah. Excuse me.
I'll take yours.
There's a little more, right?
Yeah.
No, that ain't necessary.
Well, you interrupted me, pal. That's what happens when you interrupt the right man and he's gonna chuck you down.
Call for it. That was uncalled for.
You see, there's still those words.
Those words. It's like, go back and watch, as I reference, we didn't reference in the last episode. Fuck. I reference in almost every episode, the greatest talk show of all time, Norm Macdonald Live. Jerry Seinfeld is on an episode, and Norm asks him about Michael Richards, and that's where he does that impression. That word, it shocks you. But go listen to it. It's interesting to hear them talk about. And then also, Michael Richards is on Comedians in Cars Getting Coffee.
Yes.
And thanks, Jerry, for defending him. But what I think, and this would have been, we would have played a lot more of these clips probably if we did the full episode on just this incident. But by the way, I mentioned doing a part 2. It'll be you gotta top Michael Richards.
Yeah.
This is probably the greatest meltdown of all time, so it's gonna be tough to do a part 2. But on the one of the most interesting, I think one of the best, the most well done episodes of television to me is season 7 of Curb Your Enthusiasm, the Groats disease episode, where Michael Richards is on. This is the Seinfeld reunion season. And they get the whole cast back together. They're doing a Seinfeld reunion for NBC. And Michael Richards obviously back playing Kramer. And they don't reference it at all in the season. They never say like, you know, hey, after your controversy or anything. So in that season, you almost think that like maybe they're avoiding it or whatever. And then Larry David does an episode where Michael Richards is diagnosed with Groat's disease, which is a fake disease that Larry David, like in Curb, it's real, but it's not a real disease that exists. But Michael Richards, he can't go on with his acting because he has Groat's disease. So Larry tells him, he goes, my friend Danny Duberstein has Groat's disease. He's fine. He goes, I'll set up a call with you. Like my phone is going off now. It's going to read the definition of blindness to me again. It just says the N-word to me over and over. It's like, is this what you wanted? So Larry says, my friend Danny Duberstein has Groat's disease. I'll set up a call with you guys. He can tell you what he did. And then Larry says, hey, he asks Jeff, what's Danny Duberstein's number? And Jeff goes, well, you're not going to hold to him. Danny Duberstein died of Groat's disease. And Larry's like, fuck. So he has Leon, JB Smoove, pose as Danny Duberstein. And, Leon gives him all these tips to deal with Groat's disease. And like one of the lines is he's telling Larry what he told him. And he goes, I gave him this hat to wear. So he's wearing the hat in the scene. And Larry goes, what did you tell him? He goes, I told him you take off that hat, you will die. That's what I told him. And it's a hilarious episode. But still, there's no, like, you're not thinking that this is the place this is going. Actually, they do make, I take that back. They make when Michael Richards opens the door and it's Leon, he goes, oh, come on, please, it's been 7 years. Anyways, at the end of the episode, Michael Richards finds out that Leon was lying. He's not Danny Duberstein. He never had Groat's disease. And Michael Richards confronts him in the street. And he goes, hey, you stupid motherfucker. And he's screaming at him, dressing him down. And he goes, if only there was a horrible word that I could call you that would make you as angry as I am right now. And then he looks over to his left, and there's a group of black people filming him. And he goes, God damn it. And it's the most well-done explanation where they're not taking Michael Richards' side necessarily, but they're saying, hey, here's how you can erupt in anger and want to go to that dark place. Sure. Now that was a brilliant defense by one of the creators of Seinfeld that I just told you about. I would suggest one of the worst defenses mounted against a person was orchestrated by the other creator of Seinfeld, who I might argue is the less talented. The great Jerry Seinfeld was on Letterman. Oddly enough, the week this happened, Jerry was doing press promoting the DVD release of season 9, or it might have been season 7 even, I forget. But he's on Letterman, and he says, hey, Dave, there's someone I'd like to bring on. Now, keep in mind.
This is crazy.
Keep in mind, 2007. So you said you never saw this.
Never.
I was telling Matt before, the reason I like doing this show is because, like, if you're super interested in certain topics, you'll have seen this a million times probably. But there are also, like, it's niche enough where, like, some people have never seen this. So that's why I find this interesting. 2007 is, like I said, this video went viral because it was posted on YouTube and shit. But in fact, no one at this time has the internet in their pocket. Like, not everyone is focused in on Twitter all day and knows exactly what has happened in the news the night before.
Yeah.
So at this taping of Letterman, a lot of people don't know what's going on. And they think, hey, Jerry's bringing in his old wacky sidekick. Little do they know that this video was just released. And then this is Michael Richards on Letterman via satellite.
We have him live via satellite from Los Angeles. All right, this should be Michael Richards. Michael, are you there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
Hi, Michael. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Hi.
How you doing?
I'm not doing too good.
Yeah. Why don't you explain exactly what happened for the folks who may not know?
I lost my temper on stage. I was at a comedy club trying to do my act, and I got heckled, and I took it badly and went into a rage. And
pause for 1 second. That little laughter, those are the people. There are probably a lot of people in the audience that do know that, because Letterman's taped at 5:30 at night or whatever. The news made the rounds. But the giggles you hear are people in the audience that are like, okay, this is an odd twist on the Kramer character, but they're going somewhere. I know Jerry, he's going somewhere. And that's the bizarre part of this. Why they thought this was a good idea, I'll never really know. I mean, kudos to Jerry for trying to help his buddy. But let's keep going here.
When they cut back to Jerry, Jerry also has a smile on his face.
Well, also because it's not. There might be a smile out of awkwardness.
Yeah,
but I would suggest Letterman is not Letterman. Who we with Chris, we talked a lot about in the Letterman Leno episode. That Letterman is the inspiration for a lot of just quirky, weird, I don't give a fuck comedy. So why you would think the perfect landing spot to respond to an N-word tape was right after the top 10 is a bizarre idea to me. But it's not that awkward yet. Let's keep going. Let's see where it goes.
Said some pretty nasty things to some Afro-Americans. A lot of trash talk. And
stop laughing. It's not funny.
Oh, that's that is the weirdest thing to me.
He's talking to the audience, right?
Yes.
So
Stop laughing.
Yeah, that's weird to say. Don't acknowledge it. Don't acknowledge it.
Right, because the people that don't find it funny know it's not funny.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not your job to discipline them.
It's not their fault you brought Kramer on Letterman.
On a comedy show with a comedian.
Right, exactly. And like you said, some of the people in the audience don't know. They don't know the extent of it.
Stop laughing. Yeah. And it's weird too, because now, like in Jerry's old curmudgeon-y days, like we talked about in the episode we did about him, but like he'll go to college and he's like, people are too sensitive now. But when it comes to me, knock it off.
Yeah.
It's weird his attitude towards this. But I mean, I also get the fact that he's looking at it like, oof, poor Michael. He's cooked. He's done. So there's an element of him trying to like save his buddy's career, But now we're at the element. Now we're past Jerry. We're just at the element of like, why is this happening here?
Yeah.
You were actually being heckled, or were they just talking and disturbing the act?
That was going on too.
And did you?
I know. I'm hearing your audience laugh, and it's. I'm not even sure that this is where I should be.
That dawning on you, Cosmo?
The situation. I've already heard you make some jokes about it, and that's okay, But I'm really busted up over this, and I'm very, very sorry to those people in the audience.
Pause again, real quick. I've heard, plenty of phony apologies in my day. You could even call me a student of phony apologies. I will say this is probably not one of them.
Yeah.
I think he's looking at it the next day. And if sure, a lot of it is saving his own ass. But he's looking at it like, fuck, what did I do? And there was a time not that long before this where you could do that. And to that, 50 people that were there at the Laugh Factory or whatever it is, they'd have an amazing story, but no one else would ever find out about it.
Yeah.
Unless there happened to be a journalist in the audience or something. But we're not that far removed from that period of time in 2007. And Michael Richards is dealing with like, wow, I did that. I can't believe that I did that. Because I truly believe in my heart of heart, I don't think Michael Richards is necessarily a racist guy.
Yeah.
By the way, I'd be willing to accept the argument like, if that's your go-to, you're not completely devoid of racism. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if that's the road you go down. But I would also argue you're saying the most hurtful thing you can in that moment. You know what I mean? Like I think that's more the mentality rather than true racism. But it's just interesting to hear this guy kind of walk through and realize in real time, ooh, maybe this is not the place to do this.
It's funny that in the world of like YouTube, like fake apologies, like all these YouTubers and like other people that go on YouTube and their Instagram and do these fake, like insincere apologies, that he has such a sincere apology going on right now, and what did him in is not the sincerity of it, but the format. In which he is
it's being laughed at, and it's just weird.
Yeah, YouTubers sit on their kitchen floors and give these awful apologies.
Yeah, well, we just saw. I mean, this will be a few weeks in the past now, but Drew Barrymore has that talk show, and she had Anthony Anderson on, and they were mocking the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial, and Drew Barrymore called it like a 7-layer casserole of insanity or something, which is a perfectly reasonable analysis of that trial.
Yeah.
But,
which is what I would call her show.
But you're right. But she had to go on, just the fact that she's doing it. But she had to go on the next day. Or I don't know if this is on the show or she just made a video and posted it. But she's like, I am so sorry for not realizing the severity of my words, and I take these things serious. And it's like, whoa, what are you doing? Now, when you watch Michael Richards, you're like, yeah, there's probably an apology coming. I can wrap my mind around that.
Yeah.
But it's just such a weird, the idea that Letterman is conducting this with Jerry.
Yeah, I mean, watch the Kevin Clancy show.
Exactly. A lot of apologies coming on.
The blacks, the Hispanics, the whites, everyone that was there that took the brunt of that anger and hate and rage and how it came through. And I'm concerned about more hate and more rage and more anger coming through, not just towards me, but towards a black-white conflict. There's a great deal of disturbance in this country and how blacks feel about what happened in Katrina. And you know, many of the comics, many performers are in Las Vegas and New Orleans trying to raise money for what happened there.
This is a man. Now, hold on.
He is rambling.
This is a man grasping at strength. Like, let me throw Katrina in here. Like, what else can I mention to get the heat off me? You know?
Yeah.
George Bush doesn't care about black people. He just yells that out. It's like, oh, that's where Kanye got it. Yeah, that's a man just looking for anything to hang on to. It's just weird.
Please, Jerry, help me.
Jerry, you want to take over here? What was I thinking? Can you tell me, Jerry?
For this to happen, for me to be in a comedy club and flip out and say this crap, you know, I'm deeply, deeply sorry. And I'll get to the force field of this hostility, why it's there, why the rage is in any of us, why the trash takes place, whether or not it's between me and a couple of hecklers in the audience, or between this country and another nation.
What?
He is just totally lost it. He even does, like, when he gets to a certain point, he like reaches his arms out and he's like, what is happening? What am I doing here?
And there's I just like the idea that anyone thought to themselves, hey, you know what? This is a lot like the Iraq War that's going on.
Yeah.
You know, it's weird comparing this to Katrina and conflicts, you know, involving foreign policy. Like, I don't even know what the fuck he's talking about. It's just a man who already has had the feeling of, you know, I'm washed up. I'm a has-been. I'll never get the glory back that I was on the #1 show ever, and I was a big part of that, and I'll never reach that again. He's dealt with that for 7 years at this point. Now he's been reduced to like, fuck, I won't even get, you know, bit roles on TV shows. You know what I mean? Like, I won't even do off-Broadway plays at this point.
Yeah.
So you're watching a man just deal with all of that in real time. That was the end of the clip, right?
Yeah, that was the end.
So I spare you. This goes on for like 7 more minutes. Or 5 more. I think it's a 7-minute clip total.
That's crazy.
It's so weird, and they're trying to analyze it. It's go, if you've not seen it before, or even if you have for old time's sake, I suggest you go on YouTube and give it a watch. Now, the interesting argument that came up around this time was, is Michael Richards actually racist? Was that a racist thing? And that sounds silly, particularly with a lot of our sensitivities now, because he's screaming the N-word at black people. So you could easily say, yeah, that is racist. But it was interesting to me because the people I heard defending Michael Richards were black comedians. Patrice O'Neal kind of had a defense where he's like, I think it was just anger. Like, I think he was angry and he went to the fuck you. I see a black guy, so what's the worst thing I could say to this guy?
Yeah.
And the argument they kind of made, and I think Chris Rock made a similar argument where, like, if it was a fat guy, he would have said, you fat cunt. If it was a woman, he would have said, you cunt. If it was, I'm trying to think of what, if it was me, he would have made some blind ref. You know what I mean? Like, he wanted to go to the most hurtful area possible, which was a big mistake, I would say.
And if he knew these people personally, he might have went in a different direction.
He would have gone something, with their, most recent relationship, or they lost their job, or their, whatever.
Right, that is the vein that the defense is coming from.
Right. Yeah. So I don't know whether or not that's true. I don't know Michael Richards. You know what I mean? Like, publicly, other than that, he's done nothing else other than that incident. That would make me think he's a racist, but that's a pretty big blemish. You know what I mean? It's hard to be like, well, that's the only thing, because that's a pretty big one.
Well,
what's that?
No, yeah.
But I think the best defense of him that we'll end on comes from a man who many call, including himself, the GOAT. The great Dave Chappelle, before his voice changed, went on stage at the Laugh Factory, and this is what he said.
I'll tell you the truth. When I seen Kramer's tape, I learned about myself. You know what I learned? I think I'm only like 20% black and 80% comedian. You know what I mean? And black dudes can relate. You know what I mean, bro? Like, when you saw that shit, you was furious, right? Black dude was like, Kramer, you motherfucker. Like, I was hurt. And the comedian in me was just like, whew, niggas having a bad set. Hang in there, Kramer. Don't let him break you, Kramer.
Don't let him break you, Kramer.
Hang in there. Oh,
you're also
he's having
seeing
a bad set.
A little piece of history there. You're also seeing the the early stages of the microphone tap.
Yeah,
that Chappelle does. But I think that's it's fucking hilarious. But that's what I'm talking about when it was interesting to hear comedians, particularly African American comedians, say, "Oh, clear. What we noticed is he's floundering. Take any element of racism out of him. This guy's having a bad set. So I thought it was fascinating to hear Chappelle kind of break it down in that way.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Anything else before we get out of here?
No. That was very funny. We'd end it.
I love that. I love that Letterman interview. Stop laughing.
I can't get over that. That is so funny.
Yeah. It's weird. This show has made me realize, I love, Seinfeld, helped cultivate I rip off Seinfeld every day of my life, just like my personality. And yet when I talk about him, I never realized how much I dislike Jerry Seinfeld himself.
Yeah.
But I love him. It's weird. I don't know why I do that to the poor guy.
Yeah.
I just love that Chappelle line. You get him, Kramer.
Yeah. Hang in there, Kramer. Don't let him break you.
So, if you guys like this episode, want to suggest more, go to patreon.com/blindmike. You get these episodes a week early. You can message me on there, and you get, episodes of the Blind Mike Project and all the other wacky stuff we do. And check out Vaulted Podcasts, RI.com. Hit up Matt from Rhode Island, Matt from RI on Twitter. And if you're looking to record a podcast, film something, short film, whatever, anything you want to record or film, hit up Matt from Rhode Island, because Vaulted Podcast is the place to do it. If you're in the Pawtucket area, it's worth the drive down here, even if you're a little further out. So
if you have an idea, just hit me up on Twitter. And check out these episodes because we record it here. If you want proof of concept,
yes. And I think that's it. We will talk to you guys next time on Why You Laughing.